Welcome to the Muse, baby.
Welcome to the Muse.
Thank you so much for having me, Chloe.
You are my muse today. And what an amazing muse that you are. Because I was reading up on you and you're just literally incredible. Like, I'm obsessed.
That's so kind. Thank you for having me. You are incredible.
Now stop. I was going to ask you, so when I speak to my guests and I look into their lives, I'm always so surprised about where they begin. Because May would look at a fashion girly and think she's always wanted to do fashion. But when I looked into you, you're a corporate girly. And you started off, you were in Singapore. Can you tell me a little bit about what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, so you're correct. My background is not in fashion at all. I'm Indian. I grew up in Singapore where my parents still live. I actually might be going there in a couple of weeks, so it'll be nice to go home. And I came to the UK for university. So I did my undergraduate at a business school in London and ended up working my first job in asset management. So I invested in corporate bonds, which is a completely different world to what I'm doing today with buy rotation.
So different. And how do you feel like that shaped you doing corporate bonds, like now doing fashion?
Yeah, it seems completely unrelated, which to be honest it is. It's sort of a made up world, right? The world of public markets. But I think it really instilled in me a work ethic that I would say it's quite different from the fashion media world. Things like waking up at 5:30 a.m. to be at my trading floor job by 6:45 a.m. It's a different kind of work ethic, and it's something that I think I maybe took for granted when I did that. And I picked up a lot of hard skills as well, such as obviously financial modeling, learning how to speak to C-level executives and sitting at the same table at them, making decisions on the spot when you have to decide if you're investing in a corporate bond deal within the day or not. It was kind of, I would say it was like a very, defining period for me, which made me really build up my self-esteem and my professional conduct.
What was it like growing up in Singapore? Because my husband was he lived in Singapore till when he was like 3 till 4, and then he moved back. So he was like, his parents split up and then they ended up moving back. But he always thinks like, what could his life have been like if he stayed in Singapore? What was it like growing up there?
Yeah, I mean, without wanting to say anything that gets me in trouble, because they do censor people there. It's a very clean country. It's very manicured.
It's very clean.
Yes, exactly. And it's known for being a city-state that is incredibly wealthy. Like we have, I think, maybe one of the top 5 GDP per capita, which I think is kind of crazy for an Asian country that's less than 60 years old. I think what really stands out for it is everyone is very hardworking. So we're a very merit-based country. And obviously, it was under colonial rule until it got its independence. So I do see there being a lot of cultural similarities now living in the UK, and someone who's Indian, these countries are all, these were all under British rule at some point. But yeah, it was I'd say you work very hard and you get on with it. The focus is very much on the grades, the accomplishments, the perfect CV, less creative, but I think things are changing now.
And what made you fall in love with the UK when you came over? Or did you? You just here because you're just here?
Oh, it was the Englishman. No, I'm kidding. It was Harry Potter.
Was it your husband?
He's great. He is great. That's true. No, I think I just loved how vibrant London is.
Yes.
I mean, they often say London almost wants to be like Singapore, except it's more vibrant, it's more creative. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the things that I was probably missing out, when I was growing up in Singapore. And and I think the thing about London for me is that you can be anyone you want to be. Like you can be a hipster if you want to hang out in Shoreditch in East London. You can be a Chelsea gal, like made in Chelsea vibes if you want it to be for a week.
It's so true.
It's just, you can be whoever you want to be and you can experiment and there's no judgment. And, one of the things that really stood out to me doing my undergraduate in London itself was that I met people from so many different countries, cultures, academic backgrounds, professional qualifications. Everyone was just so different and they inspired me in different ways. I would be at Fabric one night out in London and then the next day I'd be in Bougie in South Kensington. And it was all great and fun. I never felt judged for it. And yeah, I think that's what made me really fall in love with London. United Kingdom, I've lived in Edinburgh for a couple of years, and I loved Scotland. I feel like there's a part of me that wants to go back.
Such nice people.
Yeah, very warm.
Yeah.
Grumpy, but warm.
Grumpy and warm. That's so amazing. I felt the same way. I'm from Cheshire, which is like the northwest of England.
I love Cheshire.
Do you?
Some of my investors are from Cheshire.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Maybe you know
So
them.
probably not.
I'll tell you later.
So when I first came to London, I felt the same way in that you could be whoever you wanted to be, like, and you could wear anything you wanted, especially fashion. I loved that. Even now I live on the suburbs. When I'm coming into London, it's like when you're at the train station in your suburb in your nice outfit, you're like, this is my London outfit. Like, nobody judge me. When I'm in London, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just the suburbs. So how do you feel like the corporate world that you went into has helped you now in fashion?
I think it's, again, it's that part of me which has this work ethic, which is extremely hardworking, very focused, very comfortable in making difficult decisions. Those two sometimes done, with a matter of a few minutes or an hour. I think it kind of made me very prepared for the tenacity that's required in being an entrepreneur in a very difficult industry. Fashion is difficult when you're a woman of color. Tech is difficult when there's basically no CEOs and founders who are females in the tech world. So, I think these kind of, these sort of challenges I felt very prepared for when I was working on the trading floor and as an investment analyst. My colleagues were, the average colleague that I had was late 30s, white, male, and they were actually very supportive to my journey, which I
love that.
Yeah, they were actually real allies without
Amazing.
that even being a term that was thrown out there. Back when I was working in investments, it was just, it was all very merit-based. It wasn't based on who you know and who your dad is and what color your passport is and which neighborhood you live in. It was really based on, are you smart and are you hardworking and are you driving the results at the company? And that's what I love.
I love that because I don't think you'd expect that.
Yeah.
In that kind of world.
There's very little nepotism. You get found out if you're shit at your job. Excuse my French.
Yeah,
But-
that makes sense.
But I think if you look at the world of fashion, media, early stage venture capital and tech, it really helps who you know, not what you know.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And what would your advice be if there's someone listening that is in a corporate job right now and they're thinking, hold up, I want to be her, I want to do this. What would your advice be to them as the first step?
So I had a very high opportunity cost. I was an international student and I had a visa. My company was sponsoring my visa to be here. So for me, I couldn't just quit my job and be like, I'm going to be a founder. I'm going to do this thing. So for me, I've been a bit more risk averse, I would say, in my entrepreneurial journey. So I founded By Rotation as a side hustle. For the first 6 months, I was using my salary to pay for developing our app. We had our software developer who was, our senior engineer, and today he's our CTO.
Wow.
I was paying an intern who just graduated from her fashion communications degree to do our marketing and social media. She's now a senior community and brand manager. So I was kind of like, doing whatever I could while kind of deciding if it was something that would be worth me giving up my career in finance, because that was a very lucrative career and I had worked so hard to get there. So I couldn't just sort of be like, I feel like waking up today and being a fashion tech founder.
But there must have been something that made you want to do it as a side hustle. Was there something inside you, like, did you love fashion? What was the drive behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always loved fashion, but more because of how it's aesthetically pleasing, not like, oh, I know who was the designer at Christian Dior in the 50s or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know any of that, and I came from Asia. Like, I've never watched Sex and the City to date. It's not the reason why I liked fashion. The reason why I liked fashion was because of style and the way that when you put something together, it just kind of looks good and it flows and there's harmony in it. So for me, that was kind of my experience in wanting to get into the fashion world. And therefore, and that's why even when you look at By Rotation, it's less about fashion and clothes. It's more about community and tech. And that's something that's so important to me to date. For me, it's about the connections we're forming. And it's worth mentioning, I've been a graphic designer since the age of 11. It's something I always did on the side.
Wow.
There was just,
She's got skills.
There was this website called Neopets. I don't know if you heard of this.
I remember that.
Okay, so that's what it was. So when you live in Asia, Asian parents don't really like having dogs and pets. So I was like, well, I really want one. So I had a virtual pet
that's
on
so
Neopets.
cute.
Yeah. So that's how I really got into graphic designing. And from that, I kind of created my own message board, even before the days of Reddit. And it was like a community, like a digital community of graphic designers. And it kind of feels full circle. You know, we're back to building digital community through by rotation. And we've made fashion into an asset class where women are making 8x on like a dress that they're lending out on the app. And that
It's
kind of
incredible.
Thank you.
It's actually incredible.
Thank you. And that's like an ode to my background working in investments.
And how did you know when it was the side hustle? How did you know it was time to go full time and quit your job and take that big risk? Because it is such a big risk.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I never wrote a full business plan, right? I know some people are like, oh, I got to write this 60-page document. I got to map everything out. I almost kind of feel like that's an excuse to procrastinate. I personally feel.
Yeah.
I had some notes all over my honeymoon spreadsheet where I was like, I think this idea could work. And then eventually when things were getting more real, you know, we were being mentioned in fashion magazines, in print newspapers like The Guardian and Lucy Siegel. And, you know, we were seeing pickup from not only my friend circle, whom I was begging to use the platform. We started seeing strangers that I had no connection to using the platform, you know, intra-city. So like not even in London. And that's when I was like, I think this could be a real thing. So I kind of modeled out the expectation of what I would need in order to quit my full-time job, where I would be, you know, financially and in my career 5 years from now, if I stayed in my job or if I found it by rotation. So there was sort of like this, you know, cost-benefit analysis essentially to decide whether it's the right thing to do or not.
And you're probably the perfect person to do it because you've got all the skills. I feel like when people start a business, they've usually got one certain skill. They're either creative and then they need someone with a business mind, but you've got it all.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
You
I'm still learning on the job, to be honest with you. And I'm so lucky that, you know, it really does take a village. You know, it kind of looks like it's all me. You know, when you see, especially on social media, it's always like founder and CEO and like a beautiful headshot, you know, where it's all kind of like, you know, picture perfect. But the reality is I've had a very supportive support network. I've had a very supportive network around me, you know, be that my husband who is, you know, in data and analytics himself, or be that, you know, my friends who introduced me to my chief technology officer, whom I met at her wedding 6 years ago. And I didn't even know, like, one day we would end up working together. So it sort of really, I think, takes a village. And you know, the reason that by rotation is where it is because of the people around me.
That's so nice of you to say, though, because I feel it's a lot of people that are founders often will take all of the attention and they'll be like, I did all this. But of course it takes a village, and that's so gracious of you.
Thank you. And I think the main thing is, you know, and the reason for also doing it is quite pragmatic, because now we're 4.5 years in the journey, we're scaling up, you know, and we are venture backed. So we have investors, stakeholders. And, you know, sometimes they'll be like, what about things like key man or key woman risk? You know, what if, touch wood, something happened to you? Yeah, and that's why it's so important for me to highlight it's not just me running the show.
No.
Like, I can go on holiday, you know, can be away and get my tan, right?
Yeah.
And I think that actually makes sense that, you know, you start kind of bringing people on your journey and start highlighting them more and being more grateful.
And how did you first start hiring people? Like, how did you take that risk, choose a team, start a team when you were just you at the beginning?
So again, as I mentioned with the CTO, my chief technology officer, and that's a question I get very often by other founders who are not technical founders, such as myself, and they're looking for someone to build their website or their app. The truth is I got very lucky. It was really serendipity when, you know, one of my best friends, who was also a bridesmaid at my wedding, you know, reminded me that, you know, Vlad, who's our CTO now, is a great, you know, developer and engineer. She's not sure if he can make apps, but I should have a conversation with him. And, you know, we had a conversation. My husband, who has coded, you know, he's got a master's in computer science. He looked at his code and he was like, yeah, I think this man can do, he's the man for the job. Like, I think he can grow with you. He doesn't have it all today, but you can grow together. And I think that is something that, you know, I kind of invested in. And, you know, we experimented with my salary paying for him to like start creating the test platform. So I got very lucky with my technical hire essentially. And then as for, the marketing, the comms, building the community, I've been very lucky to, we've been able to build this brand, which has attracted great talent, fresh talent, in fact, to just kind of reach out to us and say, hey, are you hiring? I think it's kind of like the energy that you give out. It attracts the energy that you need back. And I found that with my hiring journey. And obviously there's been
shows if you're listening to this and you want to work for someone, just give them a message.
Yeah. And actually really invest in that, be a customer and be like, I've been using your app. This is my username. These are the things you could improve. These are the things I love. I think those kind of things really stand out 4.5 years in. Yeah. I love to see people who've actually been supporting us and are actually using the product, which is the app.
Yeah. So what challenges did you face at the start of starting Biorotation? Any?
Well, I think, there was that whole thing whether I should go full time and do this and give away, my job security, having an actual salary. I didn't pay myself for at least about 18 months. And I'm lucky to be able to do that because I have a husband who, looks after the financial burden. But I think being a founder and entrepreneur, we kind of, we really take it for granted that not everyone can do it. Not everyone can be one because there is some serious things that you give up on that journey. So I think that's definitely one. And I think a lot of my identity, especially back in that day and perhaps even to date, has been tied to my professional life, my career. So for a while I felt a bit lost. And I also felt that it was really hard to get into the fashion networks within London and the UK and of course, globally even. It's a pretty elitist, space of the world. And, a lot of, some of my investors even tell me this, and even my friends, I was just with them over the weekend and they're all very corporate women. They were like, it's crazy that you weren't even born here. You went to university here, but you studied business. But now you know all of these people on the scene. Like, we don't know any of these people. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy now how you've built this network organically and through Bioration and you're respected. You're not just like invited to the best of events, but you're actually to fill a seat as a woman of color, but you're actually respected. And I think that took a lot of time. It was very grassroots. I really had to get a few people around me to listen to my story and give me a chance so that they would start bringing me into the circle because there's a lot of sharp elbows to date in this space.
Absolutely. I feel like as well, London in general can be, and the UK in general can be very like that. It's hard to get into fashion. People can look down on certain people. I've definitely found that compared to other countries. But America even is a lot more open to giving people a chance.
Yeah.
And the UK can be a bit savage.
You definitely feel the class system a lot.
Yes.
I think within an industry like fashion, you wouldn't feel that in finance. I never felt it. I mean, sure, I obviously knew I was a woman of color versus like the white male that works, on my floor. Yeah. But I never kind of felt like because my last name is different or the color of my passport is different, I'm being treated differently. Yeah. Whereas you could really feel that within the fashion and media worlds, they
what kind of experiences have you had like that in the fashion world that stand out?
Well, I mean, just things like, you'd go to panel talks, especially in the earlier days about sustainability, where they talk about African and Asian landfills being filled up with the Western world's donations. And everyone on the panel would be a white woman, and there's no reason that there shouldn't be representation from, say, an African or Asian country.
Yeah.
And it just felt like a very white space, especially 4.5 years ago. I think it's very much improved and, people are being given voices. But I think that took quite a few movements to really get us there.
And how do you feel like you've overcome and defied the odds with Bioration?
I think obviously it's definitely my team that has really, kind of pushed me, supported me. I've mentioned how my CTO has been with me since day minus 50. My, the person who joined as an intern is now a senior community and brand manager.
That's so nice.
My PR who convinced me to quit my full-time job, Flo, she has been with me for the last 4.5 years, which never happens because people always change their PRs.
Yeah.
We've really built strong connections where they trust me and they lead me, you know, and they support me even through very tough times. So I've been very, very lucky to have a great support network around me that protects me at all costs and makes sure that biorotation is everywhere. And you know, like,
and it is everywhere.
I really hope so.
It is.
And I think hard work, to be honest with you, I think it's probably coming from like the Asian, especially Singaporean mentality, which is, you know, forget all the drama and the gossip around you, and the fact that things are not very inclusive. You know, you don't have the connections that someone born in a particular part of town does. Forget all of that. Just work hard and they'll have no choice but to not ignore you anymore.
And if someone's listening and they're like, okay, how do I build connections? Because you're right, connections are so important in this industry, and just reaching out to someone can just change your life. What do you recommend that they do to build connections?
I think one of the things, especially again, now that I'm 4.5 years in, and you know, and of course it's my job to pay it forward, because I've been on the other side, which is, I don't know anyone here. Like, I don't know who to talk to. This is awkward. Yeah. I think really put yourself out there. I remember when I was working, the last thing I did was I worked at an American hedge fund. In the evenings and on the weekends, I would go to all these sustainability sort of talks. I'd go alone. I wouldn't bring a friend, because I was like, there's no point bringing a friend, because then we'll talk to each other and I'll never meet anyone else. Yeah. And you're just helping me, because you're not actually interested. You're just helping me feel more comfortable. Yeah. So I need to put myself out of my comfort zone. So I would go to these events on my own. I would sit right in front. I would ask a question after the panel talk. Be the first person even to raise my hand up.
I love that.
Introduce myself. No one knew who was Eshita. No one knew what was biorotation. But I still said those things, you know, because you got to repeat.
You never know who's in the room.
And they're like, I think I've heard this name before. It's a bit weird. I've heard her name. I've seen this Indian woman. And so I kept doing that, and I kept showing up, you know, and kind of like supporting the people I really wanted to kind of share my story with, you know, be that in real life or by buying their products, going to their events, or, you know, interacting with them online. And by showing up, I think some people were like, what you're doing is interesting. Let me give you a chance. Like, let's talk about it. And I think that helped me get into the circle with a few people. Then you end up building your own tribe, and eventually, when you focus so much on your product, the customer comes naturally, because they're like, this is actually really cool.
They can see the energy that you're putting in as well. They can feel it and they want to be a part of it.
Yeah. And then next thing you know, even the people who would never give you a chance suddenly are like, hey, I love what you're building. I'd love to do something with you. And I've really, you know, I think about 5 years ago when my Instagram was a private account and I had photos of my dinner or me going clubbing with my friends or my holidays or my dog. And, you know, I think about how I knew none of these people. And today, you know, my friends were talking about it over the weekend again. They're like, you're friends with all of these people that we used to follow and like, be like, I like her outfit. She has great style. And I was like, yeah, they're actually nice women in real life too.
And why sustainability?
I think it just makes sense. I think we all have too much. And to be honest, it's gotten to a stage where that too much for me, as someone who used to be a shopaholic, you know, I come from a very consumerist city, which is Singapore. It came to me, and it really came to me, and it made me realize it's actually not enough. Like, anything that I buy, you know, on payday or whatever, it doesn't actually make me feel better about myself. Maybe for like the first hour, the first day when I'm carrying my new handbag, maybe even the first week. After that, it didn't really bring that sort of happiness that I thought I would get if I had that. And I think what is actually bringing me happiness is the connections that I'm building by lending and renting out my wardrobe, the women that I'm meeting on there digitally, obviously. But it just feels much more authentic, much more real. Like, there's some real good karma with it, you know? I see like my birthday dress being rented out by a woman who is wearing it for her graduation or, you know, her brother's wedding. And I'm like, this is kind of cool. Why should I keep this dress for myself? It's just hanging in the wardrobe. I'm getting karma points, brownie points, just by making a woman happier and, you know, getting her to consume less fast fashion.
It just feels like it's like your sisters and you're lending things to each other. It feels so lovely, and that community aspect is something we're losing these days with social media. So the fact it's also through social media is just so lovely.
We call it the sisterhood of the traveling dress.
Well, there you go.
And one thing I love about it is that because again, you know, I used to have a very corporate job, and I would not be having a seat at the tables I have a seat at the tables now. I think what's so cool is, like, you know, we've got like famous actors who lend and rent from like women who are teachers, students, bankers, lawyers. I think that is so cool.
It's amazing.
It's so democratic. It's not like, oh, fashion is only for influencers and celebrities and like models. You know, actually fashion and style is for anyone. And I love that.
And people are able to wear things that they maybe wouldn't have wanted to, maybe wouldn't have wanted to spend as much money on,
Yeah.
and they're wearing these amazing dresses.
Well, I've rented this pair of Chanel earrings, which are no longer
I'm
sold.
obsessed with them.
Thank you. I've rented them for a month.
Oh,
So I've just been enjoying them on my holidays. I'm enjoying them for like this podcast recording, for events that I've been going to, just mix and match, you know, sometimes with a very dressy outfit, sometimes low key. And it's and it's not sold anymore. So it's not even about money. Sometimes it's the fact that some of these items are sold out, and now I have access to them.
Yeah. And do you feel like this is the future now? Do you feel like sustainability is going to finally come through and it's going to be seen in more places?
I think so. And I think the way that sustainability is being done now, it's done in a very like, it's just a part of regular life. It's why are you making a big deal out of it? You know, it just makes sense. And that's what I love about it. And for me in particular, what I focus on, you know, it's more on the consumption side, which is the sharing economy. You know, it just makes sense for us to share what we already have with each other, rather than you buy the same dress that, you know, that I already have because you liked it on me today.
And how do you feel about like shows like Love Island? Now they're working with a sustainable brand. How do you feel about that? Because they always used to do fast fashion.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely much better because it is very mainstream, that TV show, and you know, they're working with very mainstream platforms. So it kind of makes, you know, secondhand and sustainability sexy again. I think that's good, to be honest with you. I don't have like a, you know, I know some people talk about things like greenwashing, but to be honest with you, I became, you know, the first, I guess, memory that I have of sustainable, conscious fashion, to be honest with you, was the H&M conscious line.
Yeah.
You know, and that's good because like a banker like me wouldn't necessarily be following the sustainable fashion, you know, influencers online.
Yes, if you're putting it in front of people's faces, it's at least it's in front of them, and then
they start thinking about it.
Absolutely.
And then they see it 8 times. They're like, I've heard of it. On the 15th time, they're like, I'm interested in it. Let me do my own research.
And how has the business surprised you? Or something that's happened that you were like, oh, I didn't expect that?
Honestly, I had no idea that it would end up paying for women's successful IVF journeys. I guess, I mean, I thought it was cool. Like the way that I came up with the idea was something that I wanted. You know, I had a bunch of handbags, bunch of dresses, and I was like, it would be cool to lend them out for just a weekend and make some money. I don't want to sell them on secondhand platforms and they're gone. Because I actually do like my Balenciaga bag, for example, but I'm not wearing it all the time now. And so I kind of thought of it like it would be nice extra pocket money to go out, to go on holidays. And now I'm seeing women make over £100,000 on Rotation, pay for their IVF journey, pay for their home deposit, become friends with each other that they've moved in as flatmates. I mean, that's very special. And it kind of goes full circle because we've made fashion, and not just your Chanel and your Birkin bags, but actually like, I don't know, your Rixo dress into an asset class. You know, you can make £2,000 on a dress that you bought for £250. That's better than the stock market.
It's incredible. And I was going to say about that, what's amazing is people might think of By Rotation and think, oh, it's where I rent a dress from. And sometimes they forget they can put their stuff on there too, and they can make money. And people are doing it as their career, right? They're literally, that's their job.
We know of a couple of women who have left their full-time jobs just because it gave them more flexibility. I think one of them was able to spend more time with her young kids. Yeah. She didn't need to commute as much. She was just doing these orders from home. So she's kind of made a business out of it. And I think that's so empowering. It's not something we like directly push, which is go buy clothes to make a rental business.
Of course.
But if you want to do that, that's amazing.
It's so amazing, and it's giving women more time and more ways to make income. I think it's incredible.
Thank you.
And it's become sort of like a social network for shopaholics, is what people are saying. And how amazing has it been to see people make friends through the platform as well?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, again, as I mentioned, it's been crazy because we've actually got some actors on the app who use the app without telling us. And
Wow.
and you know, when I find out, I'm like, why didn't you tell me, Jessie? We would have arranged the rental for you. And she'll be like, no, it's fine. I want to support the business.
Yeah.
And I like using it. So it's all good. I'll let you know there's an
fun.
issue.
It's fun to like look through, find something you want to wear, especially if you've got like a wedding. I think it's good for weddings. When I go to wear, so many people are like, oh yeah, this is by rotation.
Yeah, I
could
love that.
find something. I need to get something last minute, but I wanted something cute.
Yeah. And what I love about it as well is that people now say it's by rotation. They don't even say the brand name.
Yeah. Oh, always.
And that's how you know it's so cool to actually rent from others and lend to others. It's like a cool thing to do. It's not, oh, you don't have money, or ew, you're wearing someone else's dress.
Absolutely not.
But you know, you'll be surprised because in certain countries, like for example, I don't think Singapore, for example, or India would be ready for this.
really?
Yet.
Oh, that's
Yet.
interesting.
So there's a cultural reason as well why it works in such a cosmopolitan city and country such as London and UK.
yeah, I think it's so cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's like when people say something is vintage, it's cool. But
Yeah.
technically vintage could be from the charity shop.
You know what it is? It's now cool to like be clever and intelligent, to care. Exactly. It's cool not to be wasteful and buy a haul from like a fast fashion company. Mm-hmm. That's no longer cool.
I agree. And what's something that you would say to women that want to start on the app? Maybe they're like, oh, okay, I want to sell something on the app. What do they need to do?
So it's very easy to download the free app. You make an account. It's almost like your Instagram, but for fashion only and style. So just upload photos of yourself wearing the outfits that you wore to your holidays, to your weddings, to graduation or whatever. And, you know, share it on your social channels as well, because by rotation always reshares everyone's stories. We love to showcase the people on it. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's how it should be. And that's another thing I noticed as a corporate woman who was, you know, paying for all these brands and their marketing budgets. I was like, oh, all these influencers are invited to amazing events, but I'm the one indirectly paying for the marketing budget. You know, all the lunches and dinners they're going to, because I pay full price for this.
Yeah.
They don't even reply when I tag them for free. Like I'm tagging them when I buy their dress for full price, and they don't like my post, they don't comment, they never reshare. So one of the things I was very clear about, and my team knows this, is we need to give our customer love. It's predominantly women on the app. It's all about her. Like, great, I love it that Ellie Goulding's on the app, that Helen Mirren's on the app, you know, that all these amazing people in the industry are like supporting us and using the app. But it's very important that we don't forget her, because she's paying. She's paying to use it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of like what I want to do with this podcast. I wanted it to mean something and to support other women, because I feel like that we're losing that a bit. It used to be back in the day, especially with social media, where people would share each other or collaborate with each other, and that's kind of going a bit.
I think the issue with that is it's all about the numbers, the vanity metrics, like number of followers, likes, views, and everyone's getting very quite protective, you know, and competitive.
You're so
over
right.
stupid things.
And I'm so over it. I'm like, let's just support each other.
Yeah, and I just feel like, you know what? You got to play the long game. Like, you might be cool this year or next year, but your reputation might go down the drain, and people might find out things about you later. So I'm like, I'm gonna play the long game. You know, I don't need. It's not a race, and I'd rather be the turtle, the tortoise, right? I think that story really stands out to me. I'd rather be stable and consistent and always respected for what I do, than be in this crazy rush.
I always say this.
I love that.
And when people
That's
are like,
where our values align.
yeah, when people are always like, oh, I want to get this many followers and be this big person on TikTok or whatever, I'm like, but that might not last. Just stay who you are.
And
stay
then you'll be
consistent.
upset when it doesn't last.
And those people often, they go up, then they come right back down, and then they're stressed. You've got to stay consistent, be a good person, be nice to people, and you'll be fine.
And you'll attract the right kind of following as well.
Absolutely.
Who have been following you throughout the journey, and they want you to win. You know, whether you're having a quiet 6 months or a quiet year, they'll still be there.
Community.
Exactly.
All about the community. So having your own business can be all consuming. It can take over your brain. How the hell do you switch off? Because I don't switch off. So if I had my own business too, I'd be like, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, it is consuming. Like, even when I'm hanging out with my girlfriends or on holiday, we are, we'll be talking about, I don't know, men and dating. And then the next conversation topic is, so yeah, by the way, what do you guys think about this, campaign that we're doing with Airbnb? They're like, oh yeah, so about that, I wanted to tell, like it is always like in my mind and on my mind. But I think I've found ways now 4.5 years in of scaling, which is having a great team that actually do a lot of my day-to-day operations, and I'm more involved in the strategic side of things, kind of like brand building, marketing, and these sort of interviews and things like that. So that's kind of helped me not be so obsessed with the day-to-day nitty-gritty and let silly things upset me, like an email or whatever, and I think that took a while. It really took building a team that I can depend on and I trust. And the other ways I kind of unwind, I suppose, just generally is yoga. Yoga is like a big thing for me. I've done it for over 10 years. I'd love to be my own instructor someday. I love
that.
Thank you.
Another side hustle.
Who knows?
Yoga app coming soon.
Oh. and yeah, I think that's one of the big things. I think I like to work out on my own and I like to be alone, and that's my private time. It's not for anyone but myself. And I also like doing quite adventurous holidays. I'm just like, I like to go out with my friends and party and go to Mykonos or whatever. Well, not anymore. I'm too old for that. But,
Stop it.
I like to do all of that. But I think one of the things I really, really enjoy is being back with nature.
Love that.
And that's something I didn't get a lot of growing up in Singapore. So for me, everything here is surprising and shocking, and I love it.
And are you one of those people that has like a 5-year plan? Yeah, some people, they know what they're going to do. They plan everything out. Have you got that?
It's not written anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not written anywhere.
In your
but
mind.
I have some idea. Like, I have the big things that I want to do within the next 5 years. But also equally, I didn't really see biorotation coming at the time that it did. So I saw something actually this morning, which I really liked. Jamie Genevieve posted it. And I loved what it's lovely. She's really great. She posted something which was, I don't want, nothing is on my list. I'm open to everything, and I'll let anything come my way. And that's how you'll be more appreciative of opportunities. And I'm trying to get myself more and more in that mind frame, because, when you live, when you're a founder and CEO, it's so easy to spend all your time looking sideways and being like, why don't I have this? Compare. Then when you live in a place like London, which is also very competitive, it's very fast paced.
Yeah.
I think I'm more and more feeling like I'm very grateful for what I have. And if anything else comes my way, that's amazing. But
that's the way to
I'm
be.
not desperate for it.
Yeah, that's the way to be. I feel like you should just be grateful in the moment, grateful for what you have. All we actually have is right now.
Yeah.
And everything else is a bonus.
Yeah. And I think gratitude is something that I feel like a lot of people in their late 20s and early 30s, and not to sound pedantic over it, I feel like it's something that we forget. And it's something I remind myself every single day.
Because it always feels like we want the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. We're never happy until we get there. But then once we're there, we want the next thing.
Yeah.
It's too much.
And we also forget how we got this. We should be grateful.
Absolutely.
Because people around us helped us.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't just happen overnight. So take a step back to reflect. And introspection and reflection is something that I'm working on more, because I've just been in such a race and a rush to make biorotation successful that I couldn't pinpoint and tell you these were the 5 things that I did to make sure it was a huge success. It was a culmination of a lot of small things. I truly believe that.
And I feel like being a founder, a female founder and CEO is very glamorized these days on social media. How do you feel about that? Because a lot of young girls listening might be like, that's what I want to be. I want to be a CEO. And they don't really know what it means and what it takes.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken about it a few times on my Instagram, and I don't have a large following. And I think I actually find
Your Instagram is amazing though.
Thank you. It's an understated one, which I'm happy with, because I actually don't like too many public eyes on me, because I'm always like, what if people are mean to me? I'm not sure I can deal with that. I already have so much going on in my life. But I don't know. I just kind of feel like I'm not interested in being a girl boss. I love running my business. For me, the business is, biorotation for me is my life calling. It's not it's not something that allows me to be a CEO and a boss bitch. I'm not doing it for the titles. I'm doing it because I love it. I actually use the app every single day. Like, I respond to people who rent from me. And then some of them will be like, I didn't realize you're the CEO. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like, I don't want you to know.
Love that.
I want to interact with you normally as a user would, because I want to see how things are going on the app. So I don't know. I just feel like the whole girl boss, movement, it's not really for me. I'm someone who came from a career that I really enjoyed. It was very hard for me to give it up. I was hesitating even the day that I quit. So I just, I kind of want to have a well-balanced life. And I want to show other women that we can have it all. I think that's my vibe. My vibe is we can have it all.
I agree.
And we will not settle for less. So don't expect me to be working nonstop during summer, because we are allowed to have a holiday.
Absolutely. And it's so hot in the studio right now, guys. It is very much summer today.
We're hot.
We're hot. And the phrase girl boss, it's an interesting one, because we don't say boy boss, man boss.
Yes.
What's that about?
I know. And none of them, like, if you think about even consumer founder CEOs, or like, I don't know, think about, I'm trying to think, actually. I don't even know, right? A lot of these consumer brands, like Flow, the period app.
Yeah.
It's run by men, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, it's run by men. It's owned and run by men. You're giving them your period
now.
Yeah, right? And it's worth billions, whereas there's been so many other like menstrual related apps and products that have come out from women, but you don't even know that. But that's the thing. They didn't put their face out there because they don't need to. In fact, they purposely didn't, because then you would be very irritated. Yeah. And I think that's the crazy thing, that we as female founders, CEOs, we're expected to be free ambassadors, marketeers for our business. Like, this is free stuff that we're doing when we're posting about it on our LinkedIn, on our Instagram, when we're talking about the business. Guys don't have to do that. Guys barely do that. They don't even have Instagram accounts, And I think that's something that I also have an issue with, which is why I'm not going to nonstop talk about me being a boss. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not my vibe. My vibe is, I was paddleboarding. Here's a bikini photo of me. I was out with my friends at Estelle Manor. Like, I
was going to say, how was Estelle Manor? Was it good?
It's great. It's great. It's owned by Indians. So.
Is it? Oh, yes. I love that.
Yeah,
I really want to go. I feel like I wasn't sure if it was overrated. Like, what's the vibe?
There's a lot of. There's a scene right now. I would wait. Yeah. But if you ever want to go, let me know.
Oh, I will. Stunning. So, what is coming up for Biorotation? Like, what's the future?
So we just partnered with Airbnb, which is like my dream company. It's my dream partner. It's like the blueprint of what sharing economy business
so cool
should be. So that was really cool.
Because sharing homes and you're sharing fashion.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Exactly. It's all about the rotating industry.
Yes.
And we are actually doing a couple of things in London and New York, because we are also in the US. Mm-hmm. So we've created the world's largest shared wardrobe. And we are launching in another market soon, but I can't share that. I can't share too much about that, but I'm so excited.
Also, you are the world's largest shared wardrobe, and I'm going to be sharing my wardrobe on Biorotation.
I'm so excited, Chloe. I think we are the same size, and I love your style, so I'm super excited.
I'll steal some of your things, and you can steal some of mine.
I love it. Rotate.
The
rotation.
The sisterhood. I'm so excited. So I'm going to be putting some different dresses on there, so you guys can shop my wardrobe.
I love it.
Right now on Biorotation. I'm going to post it all on my Instagram, and I need to have a think what dresses I'm going to put on there. Some of my favorites, I think, are going to be on there.
I'm sure a lot of your fans will be like, oh my God, I've always wanted to buy that dress, but it was sold out. And that's actually the perfect.
This is it, because a lot of them I've had for years.
Yes, exactly.
And they're just catching dust in my wardrobe.
This is what it's about, and that's why a lot of women who are maybe a bit more like, oh, I would never rent clothes. They're now more open to it, because they're like, wait, how did you get this Dior dress from like 2002? And we're like, there's a stylist lending it out on the app. Yeah. She doesn't want to sell it, but you can rent it from her. And now everyone's becoming more open-minded about it.
And so many brands, they bring stuff out and it's just for the season, and then they're on to the next thing.
Exactly.
But we're putting it on the app. So I'm going to have some amazing evening dresses, things like one for red carpets.
Oh, I love.
So many chic stuff. So
dresses always do best. So that's a good shout.
Okay, great. There's going to be loads, so definitely check those out.
So excited. Yay. Thank you, Chloe.
I'm a Biorotation girly. I've already got some stuff from Biorotation in the past.
Oh, anyway.
I love it. I'm a customer.
Love it.
So final question, because you are my muse today.
So sweet.
Who is your muse and why?
My muse, I would say my parents. Often I've found, you have all these sort of like amazing people in the media who are like, oh, I'd love I'd love to meet them. And I think sometimes when I met some of these people, I was kind of disappointed in real life, but also I have very high standards. And I just feel like actually the people around me, they're the most authentic. I've actually seen their life play out and how they've behaved in certain great, environments and some certain like very challenging environments. So, my parents, my dad has sort of like a rags to riches story. He's completely self-made. And I just have so much respect for the fact that, he sent his 2 daughters, and we have a younger brother, abroad for university, where in my culture, usually you don't really invest in women's education that much. Yeah. Like they would have just sent me to the university in Singapore. But no, my dad was like, "Yeah, you're smart. You have the grades. Like, where do you want to go?" I was studying in the US for a year. I moved to London. So I really my dad didn't treat me different, even though I'm from a part of India where females are less valued to date. So I have a lot of respect for them. And I love Airbnb, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great company I look up to. And also, I would love to be Morticia Adams, if I could be. That's my style goal. I know you didn't ask that, sorry, but she's my muse.
Love it. I want all the muses.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chloe.